Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Dave Hoelzer. I'm your host for our live stream this week, and we have a really special treat for you. We're going to be doing an interview with someone I've known in this space for a very long time, really respected forensics and incident response guy in Europe. Before we jump to that, though, I want to talk about some other announcements of some things that are happening. As you know, if you tune into this live stream, that we will occasionally do some data science, AI, machine learning kinds of things. We're going to be returning to that with our next live stream, so look forward to that. I have some plans on that, but if you've got a burning question on something or how to apply things, or what I have in my mind is maybe how to take some data and to add dimensionality to it to be able to get some much better results out of data. So that's the current topic I have in mind. But if you have a burning question, please put that in and either put it in the chat here, reach out to me directly. Feel free to like or subscribe to our channels, either in YouTube or over on LinkedIn, however you prefer. And if we get some good suggestions there, I'll be happy to take those in. But the other big announcement is that SEC 595, the Applied Machine Learning and Data Science class, has undergone a major renovation. We were super successful with it in 2021, but going into 2022, I'm excited to tell you it is now a full 6-day course. And we've added a lot more into the course in terms of doing anomaly detection, real time, and also some good incident response stuff. Some wonderful workshops that we've got in there, for instance, for finding malware on systems, things like that, just based on machine learning. So if you're interested in that stuff, you can go ahead and head over to the channel or head over to the link. We've got it posted there, and it's also running in the ticker. We currently do not have the registration links available for the live classes, but I can tell you that there will be one in the end of February. That will be in European time and done online. There will additionally be some live courses in the months that follow. So if you're really interested in coming, I'd love to have you. Just saying hi, hey there. That's a good name. Let me try that one. Azhagaraja. So I'm hoping that's pretty close there. Let me know if I'm not. Good to see you, Azhagaraja. Nice to have you with us. But with all of that said, let's invite on our guest here. We've got Jess Garcia with us this week. Jess, I was thinking about this and leading up to this. I mean, when did I meet you? It's got to be like 2005, 2006. It's a long time, right?
It's a long time ago. I really cannot figure it out. So I started with SANS in 2002, and I think you've been there forever.
It feels that way sometimes. I was on a call earlier with a client today, and they were talking about this application that I helped develop with them. I don't know. I feel like it was in like 2005, 2006, and they're calling it a legacy application. I was like, oh my goodness, can it really be? But you're doing some really amazing stuff. So you're an expert in digital forensics and incident response. You've got a company there in Europe. What is it? 1E Security, I think that's the name.
That's correct. Indeed.
But you're doing some really amazing work with data science and some applied stuff. You've got this organization DS4N6. So what's that about?
Yeah, well, a couple of years ago, I realized that people were, there were a lot of advances in machine learning, and when I looked around, there was really nothing we could apply to our field, right? I mean, it was great. You could do a lot of cool stuff, but what is it worth if you cannot apply it like a more or less in an agile way to our field, right? So I started playing with different algorithms. I started applying data science to different cases, and I realized that there was something we could do about it. Okay, contribute to the community. I've been a user of open source tools forever, right? I think that's the blood in my veins, and I've been feeling a little shy of not being able to contribute in a proper way to the community before. So I say, this is the time. I think I have something new, something innovative, something that is not there. And actually, 2 years later, it's funny, we will discuss that, but it's still not there. I mean, there are just a few projects, but very, very little, apart from a couple of projects and some commercial stuff. So I said, it's time to give back to the community. And I can tell you everything we are doing. We are sharing with the community as open source projects. And this includes, as we will discuss later, tools, standards, and some other things which are needed if you want to take the big machine learning data science thing to the forensicators, which don't know about data science, which don't know about machine learning, but they want to use it. That's the whole point of this DS forensic thing.
Yeah, that's really good stuff. And we've got some shout outs here. So we've got Sneer Amira. So hey there, Sneer, nice to have you. He's actually wondering how it replaces or relates to incident response. So stick around because you will hear a lot of that from Jess, and he'll give you some pointers of where you can go to get some more. And also, hey there, Syed, nice to have you with us. I can really relate to what you're saying, Jess, because it's data science and machine learning just fascinated me. It always has. And when I started investigating what's available from my side, because I'm much more on the monitoring side, right? It's there's some commercial stuff out there, but the commercial people don't share at all how they're doing things. And I don't know if you've seen this, but I've often found that they're sort of fibbing about how much machine learning is really happening. But then in the research space, there is just zero that's happening in our space. So the thing you folks have created, I know you've got a Twitter feed and the blog and all that stuff. So what kind of stuff can we look forward to getting from you? What's already out there? I know there's a VM and stuff like that. So can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, actually, as I said before, the mission of our, we call it initiative, the Data Science Forensic Initiative, is basically to bring data science and machine learning to the average forensicator. And I say the average forensicator, right? So incident responders and forensicators do not really have the time many times or the skills or the capacity to actually learn all that stuff. So what we thought is like, okay, I'm going to be trying to do things in a way that anyone with a forensic background can actually use, right? And everything started with what we called initially the DS Forensics Library. We don't have a very much creative name for it originally. Now it has changed to something much cooler, which is called Chrysalis. Chrysalis because it transforms you from a non-enabled AI data science forensicator to an AI-enabled forensicator. So it's a Chrysalis, which is helping you make that transition. And the idea, and this is what I will be talking about actually next year in the RSA conference, or this year now, it's precisely how to use that in a transparent way. And so when the first thing we created was precisely this Chrysalis framework, is basically thought to run on Jupyter, which if you are in data science, you already know what it is. But if you are not in data science, you don't have a clue. Jupyter, the planet, or what is it? And actually, it's like a browser-based Python interpreter, basically, for those of you who are not familiar. I still remember a colleague when I told her, hey, do you know that what Jupyter is like a forensicator, right? And she said, I don't know, it's a browser thing where you write Python. It's like, you know what? That's not going to be working very well with forensicators, right? So what I thought is like, well, we need to create a set of things. I don't know what, but we need to create a set of things that make everything very, very easy for forensicators. And the idea has been first to create a set of tools. Actually, if you go to the Chrysalis homepage, you will see there are 7 commands, literally 7 commands. So you don't need Python. You just type xread if you want to read your data, xanalysis if you want to analyze your data, xmenu if you want to analyze a data frame or your data, let's call it. And that's it. And if with a few commands, any forensicator can learn, he can actually do machine learning. And or data science or visualization, all these things that you're supposed to do. You don't need to, you don't need to deal with all those complex processes of feature selection, feature engineering, and all that stuff that is needed if you want to do machine learning, but it's complicated, right? And it precludes that you know a lot of forensics. So that was the first step. What we found later is that, okay, how about this Jupyter thing? Can we do something about it? And what we said is like, installing Anaconda, which is the environment you normally use for data science, is not very difficult. But again, a forensicator doesn't know what Anaconda is, doesn't want to know what Anaconda is, and doesn't know how to start Jupyter and all the things that are become with that, right? So we said, well, we need to make it even easier. Okay, so what we did is create the Daisy virtual machine, which Daisy stands for Data Science and Artificial Intelligence, right? And And that there we pre-configure Jupyter with Chrysalis, and then you just double click on an icon on the desktop, and boom, you have Jupyter. You just type your X-read command, X analysis, and that's it. So I think that way a forensicator can really handle, doesn't need to know anything about Jupyter, or almost nothing about Jupyter, almost nothing about machine learning and data science. And of course, if you want to do something more sophisticated later, fantastic, you have the environment, okay? But you don't need to necessarily.
Wow. And so, I mean, the feature engineering and that stuff, that's kind of where I am. That's the space I'm in. So that sounds like it's a good marriage, because let's say you start there, because it's almost like, I mean, it may not be exactly this, but it sort of sounds like an auto ML kind of approach, where I just give it the data, it'll do some automatic stuff. But then later, if you learn more, let's say someone takes like Sec 595, they can come write their own models and build all that right there in one place. I do have to ask, though, because I was talking to Jess beforehand. He's got some really cool stuff on the background there that we were talking about, the AI movie and stuff. But with the name of your VM, I have to ask, so is that a callback to HAL 9000?
Yeah, indeed. So they're like a lot of small things that we've been introducing in our project, and you can see all around me. Okay, when I started, I didn't have all these cool things, but I said, I really want to leave my project. I really want to have fun with it. It's not just about creating software or putting something to the community. It's something I want to leave. I want to enjoy. And then I started to surround myself with HAL 9000 and devs and the AI movie and all those things I really love. And I know you really love too, because we are on the same breed.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome. And I see, so hey there, Tyler, nice to see you. I'm not sure what those letters mean there, but nice to see you there. And Mark, thanks for posting that link to the VM. We do appreciate it. And for those of you who are joining us maybe a little bit later, I'm talking today with a friend of mine, Jess Garcia, who is an expert in digital forensics and incident response in Europe, and is the leader of this project for making an application of machine learning and AI into the forensication world, dealing with it with incident response. And I just want to ask you, because I thought this was sort of interesting. One of the things you said that you folks have done inside of Daisy is you've actually come up with your own file format for kind of creating a harmonized representation. So what's that about? How'd that come about?
Yeah, there's a big problem if you're a forensicator, you don't use a single tool, right? Some people like Magnet, some other people like Encase. If you're open source, you can go with Plaso. If you're doing security event logs, you can extract the event logs from Windows directly, right? And what happens when you want to use that in an analysis environment? And you know that very well. It's a big pain, because all of a sudden, all the tags are different, the column names are different, and then you need to harmonize that, okay? If you want to, because otherwise you will need to create a different program for each source of data. It doesn't make sense, right? If you're exporting events, I don't care the tool, you should be able to use the same analysis tools, right? From the data science and AI point of view. So what we did is, we need to somehow create a process where for different tools, you're going to be harmonizing them in the same format. And this means that I don't care if the data comes from Plaso or from any other source. I will create like a small set of a small library, let's say, for that tool, so it adapts the source to this harmonized format. And one is in a harmonized format, then all the tools, all the analysis process you want to do are going to be the same. It doesn't matter where your data came from. And I think that's been one of the important needs we had along the way. And we have, as you can imagine, it's a daunting process to actually harmonize all the possible sets of data. But when I thought about this, it's like, is this impossible? When in DFIR, we have maybe 40 artifacts that we work with commonly. So if you do it for 40 artifacts, which is not like impossible, I think we will be able to apply ideas and data science and machine learning in a more or less transparent way. So that's the whole thing about HAM. HAM is the Harmonized Artifact Model, which is used for data science. And we have a version of that for machine learning, because when you're doing machine learning for the algorithms, there are lots of columns, for instance, from an event log, which the algorithm doesn't need to know because they provide no value. That's what we would be doing in the feature selection process of the machine learning process, right? So what we do is create a subset with what we call the HAM ML for machine learning, entering the machine learning world. So that's a process that makes it very easy if you have a tool, if you have event logs, if you have a file system timeline or something else, to transform your original data to something that is homogeneous, to which now you can apply the standard tools and the standard analytic techniques you use for that type of artifacts, regardless of the source tool you're using.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. I mean, so I've been really focused on 595 this week because I'm actually doing the on-demand recording for 2022. And one of the things I keep reiterating to the students in that, because in that we do all that work, is you need to prepare yourself that when it comes to, say, building the deep neural network, that takes like 30 seconds. It's the 2 hours you spend getting the data, massaging the data, cleaning the data, finding the features. So having a set of tools like that will harmonize the data, but also maybe vectorize it into something I can actually train on is hugely valuable, and something I try to push the students to do, to start building those classes and libraries. But I am curious, Jess, because you can't possibly just be doing this for fun. So you must be finding some value in this in real world scenarios. Can you give us any examples of where this kind of stuff has helped you?
Yeah, totally. The first thing, I mean, there are like two ways we're approaching this. One is a little forced, if you want, which is we've been recently speaking at the Open Data Science Conference West a couple of months ago, and we created small, let's say, workshop in when we showed how you could solve a case from the beginning to the end just using Chrysalis. Okay, so if you want to do it, let's say you want to have a single homogeneous tool or environment for solving a case, and probably that's a little bit of stretch to be realistic, but you can do it. Okay, so what we aim is at being able to have all your data in an environment where you can use both both standard traditional forensics and machine learning and data science. And as I say, it's a little bit of stretch because still there's a lot of work to do. So as you very well say, you can do that, and it's still doable. And as I say, there is a workshop on how to do it on our webpage. But also, you can. We're using it in the real world. For instance, we have a customer who got compromised. All their North America network was compromised with thousands of servers, and we were trying to figure out what was it was a ransomware attack. Fortunately, and I think that's once in a lifetime, we were able to detect and stop the threat actor before he deployed the ransomware. He already had domain admin access to all the environment. So it was like this close to actually detonating the malware. We actually jumped right in time. And one of the challenges is always like, where did they come from? What machines have they compromised? And of course, if you have thousands of machines, like figuring out what was compromised, you can do it through threat hunting and traditional IOC-based hunting, but that only gets you the machines that have been compromised through known IOCs, right? If there is lateral movement with non-compromised, with compromised account, but not leaving any residue, so to speak, just the logons, how do you identify that? And of course, if you have a forensicator look at the logons, he will figure it out most probably. But of course, you cannot do that at scale. One of the amazing things that we have discovered is that you can actually apply that at scale. You do anomaly detection at scale, and then you come out with a big portion of logons that are anomalous, maybe malicious, maybe not, but you reduce tremendously your space. And then we have found out that in many cases, the malicious logons were, boom, there at the top. So you didn't even have to analyze anything. Like, oh, look, they move from here to there to there, and that's it. Okay, so I cannot say again, and you put this very well in previous in your course and in previous talks that you've given, is machine learning is not magic. It will not solve your case for you, but it can certainly, it's starting to be solid to get some work out of your shoulders when you're doing big instances like the one I'm discussing.
Yeah, that's just beautiful. Mark Cohen in our group there, hey there, Mark, is calling out about real congratulations on coming up with a standardized data format. It's just so important. And Kurt talking about data curation. It is absolutely critical. Again, for those of you who might be a little bit later, we're here with Jess Garcia today, a forensicator in Europe who is deeply involved in data science and machine learning as it applies to incident response and forensics. And in thinking about what you said, Jess, it sounds like you and I are kind of aligned, because on the one hand, using data science and machine learning in forensics in a dead state is very useful, and I can take my time and analyze what happened. But with the example you just gave, you're where I am, saying, that's great. History is nice, but I need to know what's happening right now. I was spending some time with a guy with a national lab here in the US who has been working with data scientists in his organization, trying to come up with ways to deal with DNS data. And they have been paying a lot of money to get curated lists of DNS names that are already labeled for them, what's good and what's bad. And we sat and spent about an hour together, and I gave him a different approach using a clustering approach that he looked at when we were done. And we were, I've got 15 million requests. I need to know what's bad, but I can't just rely on those lists because they change all the time.
Totally.
I don't have time for 15 million DNS names. So in a space of about an hour, we worked out a simple process with clustering where he went from 15 million things to 8 clusters he had to look at, and just look at a handful out of each, and instantly found malicious actors in the organization. So it really is about not just the history, but the practical hands-on stuff I can do immediately. And I feel like, have you had any experience? Has there been any instance where, for lack of data science or machine learning, you probably would not have solved the case? Have you had any like that?
Yeah, totally. Last year, we were doing a compromise of a large big data environment for a customer. It was an Oracle environment, and it was really complex because it was a very large customer with thousands of logons to the system. There were like lots of applications logging on also to the system, and obviously, well, after a little bit of work, we realized that the intrusion came from an insider. And of course, if you have a user who has the access and the work to deal with the data he's dealing with, how do you detect that something is malicious? I mean, when you have a compromise, someone from the outside is cool because you find the patient zero and then you pull the string. But if you have a guy who's working with that data every day, and all of a sudden he decides to do something malicious with the data he's already working with, how do you catch that, right? And we spent like a couple of months. That was a tough nut to crack. And we spent a couple of months doing the analysis from, first of all, determining that was an insider. Then there were a lot of complications that I will not go into because the environment changed and blah, blah, blah. And then in the end, it was like legitimate users accessing legitimately to their data, but doing something anomalous. And that's the key, right? Because the thing is, you need to catch some user who is doing something that he's not normally doing. And of course, when you're talking about thousands of users and you're talking about someone who is working with the data every day, how do you identify that in a traditional way? I mean, there's no way. So a combination of data science analysis plus machine learning that got that case solved. I guarantee without that, I mean, our customer was completely hopeless. No, you cannot solve that. It's impossible. It's like, well, that's why I'm more motivated, because it's impossible, right? And at the end, we actually did it. So I think that illustrates very well that the world of application of the data is of data science and machine learning is very, very wide, and it helps you approach problems that you cannot solve on your own, right? And I think you also cover a lot of those scenarios in your course. I by the way, totally recommend the audience, guys, to take David's course. I totally loved it. And of course, from my humble opinion, Dave is probably one of the best instructors in SANS.
You're way too kind.
Yeah, that's a fact. That's a fact. That's not my opinion. And I totally recommend the course because you're going to be enjoying. And I think what you're going to be learning is taking data. I mean, my project, Data Science Forensics, is about making things accessible to the general public, right? And that's one approach. But certainly the things that I'm talking about is going one step beyond that. You need to learn algorithms, you need to learn the base, you need to learn how things are done. And I think from that point of view, David, your course is absolutely fabulous.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Jess. I do appreciate that. I am interested, though, in what your current projects are. So what cool things are you doing that play into this space, and how is that going to affect the work you're doing with Chrysalis and Daisy? What's happening?
Well, as I was saying before, we want, I mean, it's a lot of work, okay? To make things transparent for the user, it's a lot of work, right? Because there's a lot of things you need to tackle with. And additionally, of course, you're somehow limited by the type of things you do, right? Because obviously I'm applying data science and machine learning to the type of cases I have, which obviously is not going to be the same as other forensicators cases or their incident responders cases or threat hunting cases. We have in our company, we have threat hunting, 24/7 threat hunting capability that we apply to our customers. And what we are using, well, I'm pushing, since I'm the boss, I can do that, right? I'm pushing data science and machine learning there because obviously people like to be in their comfort zone. So I'm going to be doing threat hunting through the traditional ways, right? IOC-based hunting, TTP-based hunting, even maybe a hypothesis-based hunting. Mm-hmm. But you will not catch some things like lol-bean activity and things like that with the traditional ways of hunting. So that's something I'm pushing in with my team to get this into our threat hunting services so we can actually develop it. Because as I say, there's not much there. You were saying before that there is something out there in the community. I mean, we've been doing a state-of-the-art research. I wanted to present next year. I want to present later this year in the RSA conference, a little bit the state of the art. What can you use? I mean, if you're a forensicator and you want to use data science or machine learning, what tools are out there? And to be honest, I was a little bit surprised that there was just a few things, like 3 tools, 4 tools. And most of them were totally experimental, like a university student who actually created them. And it's very cool, but it's still a university student who doesn't have access to real world environments, right? Yeah. So I was a little surprised about that. And I was thinking, like, is there anything else? And if you look at Microsoft or you look at Elastic, for instance, they're doing a great job at creating or at making available machine learning capabilities for the community. I mean, for the customers. I mean, you go to Elastic and it's easy to do somewhat anomaly analysis and other types of machine learning analysis in the platform. But first thing is pay. I mean, it's payware, right? So you need to pay for that service, which not everyone can afford. And second, I don't know if you guys saw the Elasticsearch talk in the SANS Threat Hunting Summit, the last one. And it was a great talk. I really enjoyed it. But they didn't tell you how they did it. So they said, oh, we can do this, and then it's like, fantastic. I love it. How do you do it? Yeah. And that's the question I want to answer for the community, right? It's like, I love that we can do machine learning and threat hunting and I mean, apply all these things to threat hunting and all other fields. but we need to be able to learn as a community how to do it. Obviously, the commercial players need to make their money. I'm not criticizing it. I have a company on my own, and we need to make money. We do it in other ways, but certainly we need the community to start using this, and that's my purpose. Okay, so what I'm working now is in making all these things that we're already working in the backyard, in our real world threat hunting services, incident response, etc., to bring it to Chrysalis, to bring it to Daisy, so people can use it. People can, I can work with you, so people can learn all these things that we have been creating and know how they work in the real world, because that's in the end what we want. I've been a SANS instructor for 20 years now. Sharing and teaching is in my DNA.
Yeah, that's excellent. For those who are listening, if you're enjoying this conversation with Jess and you're interested in the data science, the machine learning, and information security space, don't forget to like or subscribe and pay attention to either the LinkedIn or the YouTube or other channels, because we do have lots of other live streams, and we try to do this particular one usually a little bit more technical with some hands-on stuff about once every other week. So we will have more, and just feel free to like or subscribe so you know what's coming. But responding to what you were saying, Jess, I find that one of the biggest obstacles to engaging in this space is that people have, and I'm not talking about, the people I'm speaking of are experts. I'm talking about information security experts. They know what they have, they know what they want to do with it, but there's so little information on the bridge that will take you from the data you have to how I actually turn that into something I can process. And I'm trying to fill that space. You're filling it in a different way. You're making it so easy to do. But for someone who wants to go to that next level and start building their own translations of the data, that is a really critical thing that I think needs to happen. And from my perspective, I agree that what we see available freely is so limited in our space. I mean, if you want to look at open information on research and AI, look in computer vision. There's piles of stuff getting published. There's lots of papers. And sure, the big guys, they're doing a lot of research and they're not publishing. They're just showing you, look what our amazing thing can do, but not how they do it. But in our space, no one's even publishing. And I feel like a part of the issue is not just how do I translate the data, but the data sets that are available within our space are so old that they're just not useful. So I try to spend a lot of time helping people see how to develop their own data sets, because that sounds like a hard thing to do, but I'm working in an enterprise. I've got data. I just need to build it into a data set. I am kind of curious about something you said you're working on with anomaly detection. I've been doing some work here more for monitoring to become alerted of anomalies in terms of operational anomalies. But you said you're doing some work in anomalies in event files. And I don't think that's going to be operational, which is where I'm looking. It sounds like you're more in the forensic incident response. So what are you doing over there with event files?
Well, let me tell you something, and that's something which is, I'm sorry, but I have an advantage over you, right? The problem with operational cybersecurity is that you cannot have a lot of false positives, and that's a problem, right? Because if you have SOC, we deal with Fortune 500, Fortune 50 organizations, which have tons of trillions of events per day. Yeah. So you cannot just create a rule that gives them 1% false positives. No, 1% is way too much. You cannot do that. So in your case, I mean, you need to reach a very, very, very good detection of what an anomaly is. Yeah. However, when we are doing incident response, it's a completely different story. For my good, I don't need to be accurate. Okay, if I have a 10% false positive, I don't care, because I have an analyst looking at that.
So that's where you make your money.
Exactly. Exactly. So the thing is, I'm going to be looking at the anomalies, but I don't need to be accurate. And that's great, because if I have one of my analysts look at the top 10 anomalies and say, oh, look, number 10 is the interesting one, because the first 9 and false positives, I don't care. Number 10 is amazingly good for incident response, because otherwise you would have to do that manually, and that's obviously a completely different thing, right? So that's, I think that's the amazing thing, and the exciting thing is all of a sudden you can, when you're doing instant response, you can apply a lot of things, even if they are not perfect. And I think that's the key, right? I create an algorithm, I create an anomaly detection mechanism, I create a classification mechanism, and it's not perfect, but I don't care, because I'm doing instant response. I'm going to have an analyst just very quickly looking at thousands of machines and getting that top 10, top 50, maybe detections. Actually, if people are interested, you guys can go to my RSA conference last year, 21. There I presented this methodology of trying to detect. Actually, my methodology, my use case was try to detect the SolarWinds scheduled tasks using only machine learning, and that's it. And guess what? The premise was, if one of my analysts would be able to detect it if it was in the first 50 anomalies of that network. Okay, and guess what? With a traditional autoencoder and a standard anomaly detection mechanism, it was in the 51st anomalies. The SolarWinds attack was in the top 50 anomalies in a real-world network. We did it with a real-world customer with hundreds of systems. But guess what? With an LSTM autoencoder, which takes into account time series, the time variable, it was on first place. So it was one of those that algorithm could be good for you to operationalize, because it really worked, right? So I think that's the beauty, right? We have so much to play with, and it's so promising. That's every time you would have seen me jumping around the room when I just got my #1 detection with the LSTM autoencoder. Like, wow, this is amazing. So I think that opens the door to a new world, a new way of doing DFIR, a new way of doing threat hunting. And that's what I want to share with the community. That's what I want to be able to build, right? So other people can actually use that.
Wonderful. And we've got another shout out there. Hey, Mohammed, nice to have you with us.
Hello.
I just added almost a full day just on autoencoders because of that, Jess. But I'll tell you, when I hear LSTM, I just cringe, because operationally they are just so slow. But yeah, that's useful. Hey, we've got a question here. So you're talking about top 10. It's not covering everything. How do you deal with this? So I think what so Ladada, I think what she's saying, or he's saying, is you're looking at, say, the top 10 or the top 50. What about everything else? Are you dealing with everything else? Do you care?
Yes, of course. When you are doing, I mean, what you need to understand this is as a transition, right? As we've been discussing, Dave, we are maturing here. So we are only at the beginning. Yeah, maybe there are a couple of players out there which are more advanced, but they're not opening it. So you either use their solution or you're done, right? So in the open field, we are actually getting started. And what you need to compare is not with, I mean, not having your machine learning algorithms or your data science processes to actually solve your whole problem. What you need to do is compare, how do you do things now versus how do you do them with data science and machine learning. And what we need, probably, I could say almost certainly in the future, we will be mature enough to have our machine learning processes do 90% of the job. But right now, if we have them, if we make them do, I don't know, 10, 20, 30% of our work, that's amazing. Because if you look at the standard incident response, it's thousands of hours, thousands. If you take 20, 30% of that bill, okay, in terms of money, that's an amazing amount of money. So that's what I mean. It's just, let's not look at things like machine learning is going to be solving the whole problem for me. That's not going to happen today or tomorrow. It will in the future, almost certainly. However, it can do a lot of in helping you reducing the time. Remember, for instance, when we are doing ransomware attacks, you don't have time. Okay, if you catch it in time and you're lucky enough, you will have hours, maybe days to respond. So having a process or a technology that can help you speed up that process can save your life, literally, right? So that's where I'm going. It's not black or white. This is, I have something that helps me reduce my time, reduce the money I spend, the manpower I spend. I want to use that. And I think that's where we should be going right now.
Oh yeah, I agree with you, Jess. I mean, what I try to emphasize to people as we're working through this with my customers, with my students, is don't be so focused on the accuracy, and it's not 100%. Listen, the humans are not at 100%. I want to know if it's near human, or even if it's subhuman. Am I willing to accept some gap there? Because now, because I know people are very afraid. Are the computers going to take our jobs? No, because what I'm hoping it's going to do is let that human go do human tasks and let the machine do that task to some degree of accuracy, and the human can supervise it. So I totally agree with you. We are running out of time, and I want to take the opportunity to just hear. So you've got this talk coming up at RSA. You've got some SANS classes you're teaching. What's the talk at RSA about? What kind of classes are you teaching? If we want to get more Jess Garcia, where do we go?
Thank you, Dave. Well, I've been teaching for SANS for 20 years, and over these years, I've taught like 10 different courses, almost all the forensic curriculum. And these days, what I do is precisely that: teach the forensic curriculum. Most of the times, 508, which is threat hunting, incident response, 4610, which is malware analysis, 4500, Windows forensics. So different courses on the forensic spectrum. If you go to the SANS website and search for Jess Garcia, that's where my courses are listed. Also, I teach CTI, the cyber threat intelligence, which is also another field we will talk in some other time, because I think machine learning applications like graph analysis and graph machine learning is amazing there. But anyway, we run out of time. I will also be giving a couple of talks in the next few months. First of all, at the RSA conference, where I will be talking precisely. Well, one of the things we want to do is describe the state of the art. We're going to be talking about Chrysalis. We're going to be talking about Daisy, and we're going to be talking about, or I'm going to be talking about, how to detect something like Cobalt Strike or lateral movement with machine learning and data science, right? That's the whole point. And with Daisy and Chrysalis in a very easy way. So that's my focus for the next few months, not only to talk, but develop the tool set that can actually allow you to do that, which is obviously a challenge. Also, I will be speaking at the Open Data Science Conference East. I was speaking at the West one a few months ago. I will be speaking at the East one, which is the East Coast counterpart, in March. So that's going to be another step for me. And I hope I will be speaking a lot, because as you can see, we are both passionate about this. And I really want to keep doing cool stuff, research, presenting, and making the world use. In the end, that's when you do a project like this, what you want is let people use what you do and take advantage of your work to make their lives a little bit easier, right? And all of us together will be able to counter a little bit that massive wave of cybercrime, which is really taking some proportions that's, completely unbearable at this point. So we really need to find different approaches. And I think, Dave, you and I are in that battle.
Yeah, we sure are. Well, thank you so much, Jess. I really appreciate you being with you. It's been nice catching up with you a little bit. And I personally am looking forward to, I won't be at RSA. I'm speaking remotely there too, but I will certainly be tuning in for your talk. I'm really interested in that. For everyone else, I really appreciate you being here this week. It's wonderful to be back on the air. Of course, at the end of the year there, we kind of went into a little bit of a hiatus because we just ended up with the holidays, and wasn't good to run on Fridays with all those holidays there. But we are back on track. Look for our upcoming event schedule of what will be happening in our next webcast, probably in about 2 weeks. More than likely, it's going to have to do with some feature engineering and things like that. If you are interested in hearing from Jess, of course, we've got that RSA conference coming up, but I believe he's also teaching a couple of Forensics 508, which is that that incident response and threat hunting class. So if you're looking to be able to do that stuff, he is one of the guys to go and hear about that. If you're interested in learning more about the data science piece and the machine learning and how to do the feature engineering, that more advanced stuff, have a look at the SEC 595, which is now 6 days. The on-demand is going to be released later this month. And we have several events between now and May. With that said, though, I really appreciate you folks being here. If you've got some additional comments, we will be online a little bit longer. Please like, subscribe, or follow if you want to hear more about what we're doing. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you the next time.
Thank you, guys.